Next is, and Brad has been talking a lot about Google. Next is Bradley Horowitz, who is the VP of Product of Google+. We're going to talk about social again with Bradley. Bradley, can you join me on stage? Welcome, Bradley.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Looks like you have a lot of fans here.
Yeah, this is great.
Please. So glad to have you again in Paris. No, actually, you were at LeWeb London.
LeWeb London, yes. This is my first time at LeWeb Paris.
I'm really glad to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So Bradley, you heard that Facebook tried to acquire Snapchat for $3 billion, right?
I did hear that, yeah.
There is a chatter that Google tried to acquire it for $4 billion.
Really? No, I heard that too. I can't.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I heard you ask that question. I heard you ask that question of Twitter and Facebook and now Google. You forgot to ask it of your meditation friends and your kite surfing friend, and you've got to be thorough if you're going to really dig out the truth here. But like my colleagues, I have nothing to share about that, except that, like my colleagues, tremendous respect for Snapchat. They've obviously hit a real use case, and usage we have seen, especially as you pointed out, amongst teens and young adults is stunning.
We'll come back to that.
Okay, let's.
But I'll let you talk about Google for a little bit.
Okay, thanks.
What do you think about the theme, the next 10 years?
So first of all, congratulations to you and Geraldine. This is an amazing event. As you said, it's my first time here in Paris, and it's top-notch. It's just absolutely stunning, the quality of this event, and how much of your own personality shines through. So congratulations. It's really an amazing event. I'm happy Google. Yes. Happy Google's a part of it, as you have always included Google, and from Eric Schmidt and previous speakers, but also happy to see we're sponsors, and our name is at the top of that sponsor list. So something I'm proud that we're a part of as well. I'm happy about the theme.
Thanks to you. Yeah, well, seriously. Anyway.
Well, it resonates because when I think about Google and think about the theme, I think that there's very few companies that have the resources and the opportunity to think in 10-year timeframes like Google can. And in some ways, we almost have a responsibility to do that. And it leads to the kinds of projects that Larry calls moonshots. And by moonshot, he means something that we don't expect to accomplish in a day, or a year, or a couple years. These are long-term technology investments, as Brian pointed out, often very, very high risk. We don't know if they will work, and they may take pivots and twists and turns along the way, but they're worth doing. They're worth doing because they solve the world's biggest problems if we get them right. And by way of example, there's things like Google Glass. I know you're a fan.
Yeah, I have them here.
Yep, Glass Explorer.
I am a fan. The only reason that, I can say this with you, that I'm not, I would love to use them for the stage. They're the perfect way for me to get messages from my team. Mm-hmm. Like if anything happens, but nothing ever happens. But,
right.
But they could text me and I see it, right?
Yeah.
But it looks like a little, intrusive still.
I think it looks good, but,
why don't you have them?
I need these glasses right now.
But you're doing prescription ones. This is not...
I've read that that's coming out, so I'll be closely attuned.
Yeah, you're so low in the Google hierarchy, right? You don't know what's happening.
I have no idea, but I read a lot. So, Google Glass is one example. Self-driving cars, I think, is another incredible example. And when you think about the kinds of problems that can solve, both in terms of traffic. I've already experienced Paris traffic. It takes quite a while to move around here.
But we have a metro now to come to LeWeb.
I probably should investigate that.
20 minutes from here to the hotel.
Oh, okay, yeah. Great. Also, you'll save lives with self-driving cars if we get this right, and pollution, and there's so many benefits there that this really is an approach to solving some of the biggest problems in the world. And these are examples of moonshots, things like putting Wi-Fi up on balloons that people have heard about. And then there are the other moonshots that people, I think, almost take for granted, and those are things like Chrome and Android. Now, they don't look like moonshots today. They look like successes today. But when these projects were started, and I think people forget how long ago those projects were started. If you look at Chrome, I think it's probably 6 years ago. Android, I think we acquired Andy's company, which was already up and running 9 years ago. So it was almost a decade ago that Larry had the idea, which is now patently obvious to all of us, that smartphones are the future, but it certainly wasn't obvious a decade ago, at least not that Google could be a contender in that space. And so some of these things take a very long time to play out, but they're worth doing. At the end of this effort, you get something like Android, which I think is a huge contribution to the world and an excellent piece of technology. And so, you know, there's the things like self-driving cars. There's the ones that are a little bit more mature, like Chrome and Android. And then there's things like Google+, which are only 2 years old. It's 2 years and 3 months since we launched that publicly.
Okay, so what you're saying is give me a decade as well, like Android.
I don't think it'll take a decade, but we're not afraid at Google of doing things that are technologically significant and take a while.
No, that's a very good context.
We have the determination and we have the track record to continue iterating and make sure we do something that's not a Me Too product, that is something that is really significant.
No, it's not a Me Too for sure.
Yeah.
But Android, you're right. Android started, there was, at the time when you think about it, there was BlackBerry, very dominant. There was
Palm Pilot. I mean, you know, like, you know, Newton. This is not, you know, an innovation in the sense of it hadn't been tried before. But Google has its own special approach to these things and brings to bear a certain thinking.
What's the special approach to Google+?
Well, I have to say that Brian, when he enumerated those 8 sort of principles, those are things that we do believe today and that guide a lot of the product development there. I think when you think about what's special about Google+, I'll invoke one example, and we can talk about more later, but things that we're doing with photos. For instance, we don't just back up and upload your photos. We use the compute power of Google to enhance them and make them better. And it's not simply minor global enhancements like contrast and saturation, but we actually analyze the contents of the photo and selectively fix things. We smooth skin so that people look better and less wrinkles, and we are able to sort of bring silhouetting and vignetting to photos. And these are subtle things, and they require huge amounts of processing power, but ultimately your photos look better. And it's a really hard technological problem, and it's one that I think ultimately is a very googly problem. Not just storing the photos and giving you infinite backup, but being able to make those photos look great so that you can share them and feel proud of them.
You had Picasa.
Yeah.
And like pictures are important. Like I lost 3 years of pictures because my hard drive died.
Yeah.
And I had no backup because I was lazy. And there was no Google Drive and Dropbox, so gone. Like gone.
Tragic. And hopefully that will never happen again. With both Android and iPhone, we now have auto backup functionality. So every photo you take can be safely stored in the Google Cloud and protected there.
But so how much can I trust Google in like keeping them, and I can download them, and can I send? Is it unlimited?
Absolutely.
Raw
we give you unlimited web resolution format. So like 2K on a side is unlimited, as many of those as you want. And then we give you ample disk space, I think a gig for your bigger than that photos. And if you want to buy more, we allow you to buy up if you want to buy a terabyte.
Yeah, I hear you actually have a business model that works pretty well. So
yeah.
I'm not surprised you're selling.
Yeah, it's working.
How important is social at Google?
Yeah. So social, I think, especially what I want to talk about today around brands and brands at social, I think it's hugely important as we get more and more tools that allow people to manage their attention. I think this phenomenon happens for brands where getting through gets harder. And you know, that at first glance may appear as a negative, but I think for consumers and ultimately for brands, it ends up being a positive, right? Because you're competing for the scarcest resource, which is people's attention. Just moments on Earth, they're not making any more of them. We all have a finite number, and how we choose to use them is sort of one of the most important decisions we'll make. And it's behind a lot of the technology that we create at Google. You think about things like Gmail Priority Inbox. That's exactly about trying to orient your attention to the most important things in your inbox. And I think the same
is that successful?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think people have different workflows for Gmail and for email more generally. But for me, the flood of emails that I get, there's no more sort of zero inbox. There's no more hunt and peck and categorize and drop. having a tool that automatically orients my attention to the most important stuff first is essential to my getting through my day. So I think what this means for brands is that they're going to have to work harder. It's going to be harder to just reach users or pay your way through interrupt advertising. And if you think about 20 years ago, that's how it worked. If you were willing to pay up, you could put an ad on one of the 3 television networks and sort of seep into the popular consciousness. And now, with unlimited choice for users and tools that allow them to control what they see when they see it, it's getting harder and harder for brands to reach users. And that raises the bar.
But Gmail is a great example, because now if I send a newsletter, it's getting very difficult to actually have it in, because with priority inbox, you're going to hide it, right?
It's not hidden. It's categorized, and it's there when I'm in a mode to deal with it. And I actually give more attention to these things when I come at them and they're not annoying, because I actually have a moment to actually receive the information therein, versus when I'm trying to get something done in the middle of the workday, and that's an interrupt. So I think we're contextual beings. We have, varying opportunities in our day to apply our attention in various ways, and Gmail is trying to leverage that and give that opportunity back to people so that I can actually digest the information when I want to and not when it finds me.
So Gary Vee talked a lot about brands, and he's been swearing a lot too. We don't have to do that. But so what do you think brands, how do you define their new space? Because you're hiding the newsletters, you're making more difficult. I mean, not you only, but like honestly, on Facebook, the ads on the right, I don't even look at them anymore. I know they're there, so I don't look at them.
So let me describe a couple brands that I think are doing this well and how this changes. I think I won't sort of walk you through the kind of talk you've heard in the last 2 days. I think everybody knows that brands and brand messaging is moving from a broadcast medium to a more conversational dialogue, opt-in marketing. All of this is definitely happening. And again, I think it's ultimately good for brands and good for consumers. Part of what we're doing, and part of what I wanted to share with you today, is something we're calling Plus Posts. And Plus Posts is a new format that we've announced and is rolling out gradually over the course of a quarter. But it's a new means of engaging users through the Google Display Network. So the Google Display Network is a fantastic tool, and it has fantastic reach, as I think all of you know. It's hard to find a site that doesn't avail themselves of Google tools. And what this does is it allows for much richer engagement, as opposed to just a display ad, which is a means of generating brand value and awareness, or a traffic-generating ad where I click on the ad and I'm thrown somewhere else. This is something that allows me to engage in situ. So I can stay on the site where I find the ad, I can hover over the ad will expand, and I can, for instance, watch a video or engage with a social post. And so what Plus Posts is
that on Google itself?
No, it's on the display network. It's on the web.
Everywhere. Oh, okay. So any website.
Any website. And in fact, I did bring a short video. And so if we could roll that video now, I think you'll get a good flavor of what it is we've built.
Let's have a look.
Corolla Consumer is young, creative, they're constantly connected, they're using social all the time, and they really just want to have an authentic conversation, whether that means with their friends, or in our case it means with a brand.
When it came to the 2014 Corolla launch, we needed a unique approach if we really wanted to reach this consumer. Rather than to talk at them, we wanted to talk with them. Plus Post ads increase the level of conversations online and reach those consumers wherever they are.
We focused on developing content that was relevant to our audience to drive engagement, and Plus Post ads made sure that content got noticed. Plus Post ads are great because they take the content on our Google Plus channel and push them out. So we open up our content to a much bigger audience.
Being able to deliver the right message at the right time to the right person is always the gold standard.
It's pretty cool that we can let our consumers talk to us directly through the advertising. It doesn't just change what we say, it changes how you think about it, and it changes how you craft the messaging. and makes the entire web our social platform.
Wow, so you had you had Google Plus as a standalone pretty much at the beginning, and now it's like going all around in Google. But what's very impressive to me here is, and we'll talk about the comments on YouTube. You replace the whole YouTube comments by Google Plus, and I find it great myself as publishing on YouTube. The comments really sucked before. You had all those anonymous comments, and they just like attack you, or they don't make any sense. And now, at least it's, I know it's you commenting.
Right.
It's verified identity, not verified, but it is your real name. Anyway, and so you can see Google Plus going everywhere, but especially now on the ads themselves. That's the core of the engine, right?
Exactly. I think I want to slow down and explain what we just saw, because I think it's profound and significant, and I think there's two ways to look at it. From the point of view of Google Ads, we've introduced a new format. So that format is a Google Plus post, and it's a post that your consumers can engage with. They can actually have social interactions with each other or with the brand, and they can do that right on wherever the page where they find that ad. So it's not that they have to come to Google+. They can be out on the web. In the video there, the example was allrecipes.com. And so on allrecipes.com, you'll see a Toyota ad that you can hover over and leave a comment and say, this is a neat car, tell me more. So that's an example of how advertisers can avail themselves of Google Plus posts across the entirety of the web virtually. And what else is cool is that it makes creating ads really easy. Every post you've ever made is potentially an ad. All you have to do is promote it, and you can place that on the entirety of the network.
Which is what Facebook has been doing for a while already, right? With promoted posts.
What promoted posts on the Google Display Network, I think, is unique. You know, being able to reach users off network, not just on Google+, but across the entirety of the web. And all of the Google tools are there. This is the way that those ads are bought, the way that those ads are targeted, the analytics behind those ads and the reporting are all part of the ads mechanisms and machinery that we already have in place. So for people that are already Google Display Network advertisers, this is just another arrow in the quiver and a new means of connecting them to their consumers. And as you point out, from the perspective of Google+, this is a mind-blowing expansion of the surface area of our product. So not only can these brands interact with users when they come to Google+ or when they come to our mobile apps, but now the web is the stream for the users. Wherever they go, this is content they can encounter and choose to interact with if they so choose.
Well, so talking about interaction, a lot of brands are very afraid of the comments.
Comments, okay.
So comments here are embedded in the product, or you can turn it off?
Yep. We give users control. So users can decide whether the public can comment on their content or only people in their extended network or only their circles. I think most brands at this point are sophisticated to understand that there's going to be a variety of opinions expressed. You cannot over-curate or manage or manicure your conversation. And so, yes, there is some exposure that as brands get out there, and it's part of what I talked about of raising the bar. You actually have to have meaningful content, meaningful products, and be willing to risk that exposure that it's not just you talking at people, it's them talking about you as well.
So how do you flow now Google Plus into the whole, so the YouTube comments, for example, you got a lot of crap when you did that.
Yes, we did.
Because all the YouTube, fanatic YouTube users.
Well,
we don't want that.
I think it's a little more nuanced than that. I think that, as you point out, the general impetus for the integration that we did, and just for anybody who missed this, YouTube commenting is now powered by Google+. So the entirety of YouTube, every video on YouTube, the comment section for the watch page of that video is now Google+ powered. And I think, per your experience, it's a very beneficial thing for channel owners and for commenters. It means I can go to a video like Gangnam Style, which has tens of millions, hundreds of millions of views, probably billions of views at this point, and millions of comments that were useless to me. a month ago. As I tried to paginate through those comments, it was random comments from random people all over the world. Now we're able to rank those comments in proximity, social proximity to me. So comments from people I know, like Loic and Ohm, they float to the top, and I'm able to interact with those. I can respond to your opinion about Gangnam Style, which is really, really cool, and it's really beneficial. To be clear, out of the gate, we weren't doing so well. And a lot of that had to do with ranking and how we were in a bit of an arms race around spam and abuse. And oftentimes, when you're dealing with these things, it requires several iterations to sort of get the signal right and tune things appropriately. So I don't think this was YouTube fanatics. There were some real problems with the integration as launched, and it took us a matter of days to iron those out. And I think most people are now having the experience that you are, which are things are dramatically better on the other side of this integration. And there's much more work we'll continue doing.
So that's how you're basically planning to beat Facebook, is by having social invade all the, or like being embedded in all the properties of Google. So, YouTube and like photos are Google Plus, and ads are even Google Plus. So everything is turning into it's Google Plus.
So two parts to that answer. First, it's never been about Facebook for us. I think, as you know well, it's a very different product and serves a very different use case than Facebook. And the second part.
Can you remind us?
Okay, sure. I think, first of all, our product has been designed from the ground up to be very privacy-centric, so that it's as good for a whisper as it is for a shout. You mentioned something like Snapchat. I know LeWeb and yourself are big Google Hangouts users. When I think about one of the reasons that Hangouts has taken off, I think it's because it touches this ephemeral use case. That when I'm having a conversation with somebody, it's even easier than 140 characters. I don't have to author anything. I just light up a Hangout, invite my friends in, and we talk. And at the end of that, there's no record. It's not on the record. It's not recorded. And in fact, we did launch recording of Hangouts, but we put a bunch of protections in so that when a Hangout is being recorded, every participant in the Hangout knows. You get an opportunity to leave if you don't want to be recorded. We were very, very thoughtful there. So I think we've seen evidence ourselves that the use case of ephemeral messaging is very, very powerful. It's sort of a leap to try to connect Hangouts to the use cases of Snapchat, but at a conceptual level, you can see this lightweight ephemeral interaction is something that's really resonating with users. So Hangouts is a good example, in fact, of how I think we're differentiated from everyone in the market. We took an asset that we had, which was the tremendous serving infrastructure that YouTube had built out, and we're able to do things like Hangouts that are free, that used to be tens of thousands of dollars in dedicated video conferencing hardware, and we've made that accessible to anyone with a laptop or even a mobile phone now. And these are transformative things. The way that people are using Hangouts continues to touch me and blow my mind. So we're on a very, very different course than any of the other competitors. To the second part of your question, which is tying things together, this has been our stated strategy from day one. That Google Plus was not only a new and differentiated social product, but it was also a means of Google understanding how to serve this important use case for our users. And so that means YouTube integrations and geo integrations and ads integrations like you see today. All of this is underway and all of it continues. And it's an important part of our strategy and has been since we launched.
I get it, especially if you see it over 10 years or as you were talking about Google Drive over probably 20 years.
Yeah, yeah.
When do we get a self-driving car? Like for real? I mean, you see them all around in Silicon Valley, by the way. You keep driving, it's so cool.
Have you driven in one or rode in one?
No, I have driven next to one.
Oh, that's very daring.
On the 101.
Yeah, great.
And that's funny, you're driving and there's this car.
Actually, we drove race cars together, so I know how you drive. I need a self-driving car fast rather than you as chauffeur.
I thought you would say something else.
But you know, I've ridden in the self-driving cars. I have no idea when they'll be market ready, but it's an amazing feat of technology when you sort of bet your life on this technology, and you know, it's actually stunning to see. And immediately you can see that it's viable, and it's a matter of time.
The OS should not crash for sure. crashing the operating system of this thing.
Yeah, that would be very bad.
mean crashing for real.
Yeah, right. So, I'm sure there's many things to work out, but I think, it speaks to the kinds of projects that Google likes to work on, and I'm really proud to work at a company that takes on the world's biggest problems, irrespective of how long it'll take to get there.
Bradley, I know you know it's one of the topics I like to address with you because you're such a key executive at Google that you have that power, but you have a ton of entrepreneurs here. How do those people should approach working with Google? Whether it is being, and by the way, again, in the Osman building, there is a whole Google mini conference there happening and set that you have to visit if you haven't. But like, how do I work with Google? How do I get Google to invest? You guys invest a lot. You've invested in like what 200 in Uber itself. Yeah, 200 million, right?
Yeah, lots of money. Yeah,
on $3.5 billion valuation.
That's what I read.
And but like, and also you acquire companies too.
Sure.
You acquired Meebo.
Yeah, we acquired Meebo and Say Now and lots of companies over the course of my history at Google. I mean, I think.
And then when I say Google acquires, those are Bradley acquiring them himself. Right?
Yeah.
Meebo,
those are some that I've been involved in. But I think. It's a hard question to answer how to work with Google, generally. I think, first of all, Google depends on ecosystems. And when you talk about an ecosystem of advertisers and publishers, we have a long track record of working well in those ecosystems and playing nice with others. We have APIs that allow others to build on top of our system. So there are many, many self-serve automated ways to work successfully with Google that don't require...
I mean, how do I get you to acquire my company?
Okay, that's a different question. I mean, I don't think you do anything special. I mean, what you do is you grow like crazy and you do right by your users and you build interesting, fascinating products, So I think...
But you get, what, like 20 startups a day emailing you, like directly yourself, saying, hey, Bradley, would you be interested in that?
Yeah, there's a lot of inbound.
Get in line.
And I love it. It's fantastic. It's invigorating. And it's important to us to sort of be in the community and aware of what's happening. I think, Google, as big as we are, we try not to be insular and we try to be connected to what's happening.
But most of them is indeed like, my product doesn't have the same traction as I expected. Hey, Bradley, can you buy it? You have some of that, right?
There's some of that. I mean, there's lots of reasons why Google might or might not buy a company. One would be sort of the hyper-growth example, like Brian mentioned YouTube. Sometimes things are taking off, and it makes sense. There's other things that are talent acquisitions. The exits can be fantastic outcomes for both investors and the entrepreneurs. And it's not that the product is what's motivating us, but there's super talented people that we'd like to have on board.
Yeah. Adrian Aoun, just sold his company now. He's your head of artificial intelligence.
Right. So there's lots of ways to be successful in working with Google and marketing yourself to Google. But I think my advice to entrepreneurs is sort of the same advice I think anyone would give, which is you don't want to optimize for an outcome like that. Like, what can I do to build a company that would be acquired for Google? You'll inevitably fail if that's your sort of higher order goal. You want to build a company for greatness, and Google buying you might be a happy side effect at any given point in your curve that you may or may not choose to go with, or we may or may not choose to go with, but it should be a side effect and not sort of the primary objective. And if you focus on building something great, I think we've heard a lot of fantastic advice, and I will add only this negative, which is don't optimize for a company that Google might buy. Optimize for creating value for users and doing something you're really passionate about and something that might change the world. And then send me an email so that we have a chance.
Bradley, good luck with your decades of changing Google ahead. Apparently long-term. I like the long-term approach.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next year because your wife wants to come back, I hear.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, she'd be much more interesting than I am.
No, we'd love to have you back, Bradley. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bradley.